Taking a lamp, he crept softly up the stairs. He passed swiftly into the attic, locking and bolting the door behind him as was his custom. Placing the lamp on a table, he dragged the purple hanging from the picture. No change. No change whatsoever. Save that now there was a new and horrifying look of cunning in the eyes, and on the mouth the curved wrinkle of the hypocrite. The thing was still loathsome, more loathsome if possible than before. The scarlet dew that spotted the hand seemed brighter than ever and more than ever like blood newly spilt. There was blood on the painted feet, as though the thing had dripped blood even on the hand that had not held the knife. Oh, what did all this mean? That he was to confess to the murder? To give himself up and be put to death? And the idea was grotesque. Why should he confess? There was no evidence against him, no evidence at all. Except the picture itself, with its leering face and its blood-dripping hand. That was the only evidence in the world against him. He would destroy it. Looking round, he saw the knife that had stabbed Basil Hallward. As it had killed the painter, so it would kill the painter's work.
91, I think, with the idea of doing plays in the two languages, in French and English, with the same cast, in other words, with a roughly bilingual cast. And we did a number of plays, both in English and in French. Pinter, P.G. Wodehouse, Brian Friel. We are not doing so many in French now because it is much more difficult to get an audience in French. That's to say that we can target our English audience, but with the French audience, we're in competition with another 200 plays at the same time every evening. But we haven't given up the idea of doing bilingual theatre. The name Dear Conjunction is from the last act of Henry V, where the king speaks of the dear conjunction between the two countries as he's marrying his daughter Catherine off to King Henry. It's not easy to do plays in both languages. We've tried doing alternate performances. We've tried doing 3 nights English, 3 nights French. It's quite hair-raising because you get used to doing it in one language and then you have to switch overnight, as it were. So it is quite exciting. We also have to choose appropriate plays and appropriate actors who can do the job in both languages. So it's ambitious and sometimes works.
Got my second buttonhole for me, Phipps?
Yes, my lord.
Rather distinguished thing, Phipps. I am the only person of the smallest importance in London, at present, who wears a buttonhole.
Yes, my lord, I have observed that.
You see, Phipps, what is fashionable is what one wears oneself. What is unfashionable is what other people wear.
Yes, my lord.
Just as vulgarity is simply the conduct of other people.
Yes, my lord.
Other people are really quite dreadful, Phipps. The only possible society is oneself.
Yes, my lord.
To love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance, Phipps.
Yes, my lord.
Don't think I quite like this buttonhole, Phipps. Makes me look a little too old. Makes me almost in the prime of life, eh, Phipps? For the future, a more trivial buttonhole, perhaps, for Thursday evenings.
I will speak to the florist, my lord. She has had a loss in her family lately, which perhaps accounts for the lack of triviality your lordship complains of in the buttonhole.
Extraordinary thing about the lower classes in England. They're always losing their relations.
Yes, my lord, they are extremely fortunate in that respect.
Eh? Yeah, well, that'll do, Phipps. Phipps is views on family life seem somewhat lax. Really? If one's own servants can't set one a good example.
The play we're doing about Oscar Wilde, which we call More Lives Than One, was in fact inspired by Michael McLearmore's The Importance of Being Oscar, which we used to do as a reading around about Oscar Wilde's birthday. But that was a very long play, and it had nothing about the trials in. So taking that as our starting point, we borrowed a few bits of that, went into biographies. Some of it I wrote myself, and I took the transcripts of the trials and put those excerpts in. And so we've got a new show, although inspired by Michael McLearmore's very long Importance of Being Oscar, which he wrote in 1964 and performed, I believe, all over the world. So that's but this play, in its, as a condensed hour and 5 minutes, covering the whole of the life of Oscar Wilde with 4 or 5 extracts from his work in English and in French, seems to be very successful.
At all. Do you mean emotionally or financially? Financially? You think we're talking here of finance? I don't know what you're talking about. You must ask me a plain question. I hope I will make myself very plain before I am done. Now, Carlson may not have been Wilde's equal in classical studies at Trinity, but now he came into his own. The cross-examination then moved on to another plane of literary inquiry.